All right, good to see you folks.
All right.
I'm Bart,
I'm Patrick.
and we're kind of going to talk to you today about AGI. So, first question, what's AGI?
AGI is this idea of a human level intelligence, probably more than human,
Exactly.
and it wreaks havoc on the world, the financial markets, and does wars and all sorts of crazy things, right?
So the idea is like, what if you can build a computer program that can do everything a human can? Like think as well as a human, so it can talk like you, it can speak like you, can probably even control a robot that moves like you, and it can do a hell of a lot more. As Patrick was saying, it can start wars, it can manipulate the destiny of nations. It's something people get scared about. So there's a book by the philosopher Nick Bostrom talking called Superintelligence. The idea is that the creation of artificial general intelligence can be a more powerful and more influential outcome for mankind than he mentioned the nuclear bomb. So it's something that we should all spend a little time thinking about. But there's a big controversy right now. Is AGI something we should be worrying about today, or is this something that's like far off in the future that we don't even have to think about yet? And we're going to do a little bit of a debate today, just kind of try to figure out amongst ourselves. Do we think AGI is going to happen, and do we think it's something you need to worry about, or anyone needs to worry about? And we hope you'll have fun watching. So, Patrick, what are your views on artificial general intelligence?
I think we're probably closer than we think, but probably still a little bit further away than the most aggressive people think. This is not something that's going to happen in 5 years or probably 10 years, but I think we're starting to see inklings of it. Up until like about a year ago, you'd have a machine learning model for every data set, and you build a machine learning model that was very good in one area and it was very stupid everywhere else. You build this amazing translation model that still thinks Tom Cruise is a cruise ship, not a person. So that is starting to change. There's this thing called metalearning, which basically allows you to sample over tasks. There's a variety of ways of kind of attacking this. And
Can you give us some examples?
sure. So MAML, you have the MEM, the memory, just an LSTM with a network basically with a memory attached to it. You have the Siamese networks, you have kind of all these different strategies. But by sampling over tasks, you learn to actually do two things. One, get really good at the individual tasks, then also learn very quickly how to learn new tasks. So it's kind of this two-part learning process. And we've seen that this works very well and actually better than humans on some benchmarks like Omnibot. And if you have 1,000 tasks, you probably end up with a system that's probably just good at everything. Moreover, there's some talk about future work is that if you have an arbitrary number of tasks, what I mean by that is that you have an AI system that can access anything. Can you make the AI access the most interesting things? So can you, instead of having this, you have this distribution TI over tasks, but this is basically an infinite distribution. Whenever there's like hundreds of thousands of things to choose from. What if you actually sample the most interesting things? Maybe sample the things that have the highest expected reward. So all of a sudden, we've kind of built this very abstract system. We have a system that can do well in individual tasks, but also can very quickly pick up new tasks. And perhaps the level beyond that is actually do a system that can actually figure out what kind of things to play with, kind of like a creativity system or like a curiosity layer. And then maybe you can learn which tasks actually are the most interesting to learn.
So basically you're saying that since these systems learn how to learn, you think that they might actually begin to
learn what to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how far out would you say we are from having a general purpose meta learning system?
I think if you have enough money, it's probably time is now. Probably within the next year or so, I think these things will start to maybe not come mainstream. So the barrier to entry probably is quite a lot higher than the other things. But yeah, probably next year you'll probably see systems like this come about.
Well, would they be general purpose? Could you actually learn how to control a robot and actually say do a drug discovery challenge? Or would it be like within drug discovery you can learn how to learn things, or within robotic juggling or control or whatever you can learn how to learn things?
I think you're probably still in the same domain.
Okay, I see.
I see. Probably still in the same domain. The underlying data you have access to probably doesn't change really. It's the structure of that, right?
Right.
Although maybe because if you have a graph value deep learning system, you can kind of take an arbitrary data structure, maybe. Yeah, so AGI, I think it's, in some way, it's closer than you think, because these very kind of scary things are coming about. But having the system that you can talk to and it can do your homework for you and take care of your kids for you, that's probably still pretty far out.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because the main challenge is, like anyone who's built a machine learning system does, these things are really brittle. They take a ton of data, they take a ton of massaging. It takes weeks of a really good programmer like digging their hands deep in that data and getting it to just work right. And we don't even know how to debug a lot of these programs. Like it takes just a large amount of effort to like figure out why a machine learning algorithm isn't even learning the thing we want it to learn. So I think you're right. I do think meta learning will become a very influential technique, but it'll be kind of like within one area of study, you'll begin to see meta learning systems that can answer related questions, which will make it a lot more useful. I think we'll see a lot better factory robots and a lot better pharmaceutical assistants. But general intelligence, the stuff nightmares that are made of, I think I would at least say we're quite a ways off, because we seem to still be lacking some primitive. And maybe we just need more compute, we need more hardware, but I don't think we're there right now.
How many years?
If I had to say, I think it's at least more than 10 years out. Beyond that, it's hard to say, because you never know where research is going to happen. Now, people have done these like brain intelligence charts where you try to say, oh, well, the brain has this much computing power. And chips have,
those are always goofy.
Those are goofy. And the fact is that the brain is a piece of goo, essentially. It has a consistency of butter. That's not the same thing as silicon. And we can't really do an apples to apples comparison. It's not even an apple to orange. It's like an apple to goat cheese. Are they even the same thing? Yes, they're food, I guess, but there's such a gap in comparison there. So I think that we need to figure out how to understand, how to learn, but to do so for many different types of input. So how do I learn to see? How do I learn to talk? How do I learn to have a dialogue? If we can do that, so meta learning plus multimodal learning, we can be getting somewhere.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about the richness of the environment as well. When we talk about this multi-environment general AI, that can just basically do everything very well, except the problem is that we don't even have an environment that does that really at this point. We don't have, I guess aside from maybe building a robot and having it walk around, you don't really have a truly rich enough environment, I think, to even kind of start talking about these things. In fact, we see probably some innovation there as well.
I think you're hitting on a fundamental point, which is that a lot of these learning techniques, reinforcement learning is one we haven't mentioned much, they really rely on having a good simulation of the world. So, for example, Google's AlphaGo recently beat Lisa et al. And other Go champions by using reinforcement learning. But there you kind of know when you won a game of Go or not. In other applications, it's a lot harder. So Andrew Ng's group at Stanford about 10 or 15 years ago, they made a helicopter that used reinforcement learning to learn how to fly upside down. And I remember chatting with a member of that research team, and he said the hardest thing was getting a physics simulator that could actually do helicopter physics accurately enough. So it wasn't the reinforcement learning that was hard, it's the physics and getting that in a computer, which means that until you have a way to create a simulator that really just mimics reality, you can't expect a reinforcement learner to go out and learn, because these things are super slow. They work by running thousands or millions of trials. And you can't do that in reality. Like babies don't fall down a million times. They fall down 3, 5, 10 times, but then they figure it out. So actually, maybe that's a good point. Like maybe the key thing is our algorithms learn too slowly. They expect too much data. Do you have any thoughts on how we might fix that?
Well, I'm going to, of course, talk about learning to learn, right? And yeah, I mean, that gets you most of the way there, I think. We are seeing evidence that these systems can learn faster than even humans can. I suppose if, you have a little robot baby that walks around and talks and falls and bumps into things, and it does, thousands of baby things, and maybe, the next time it falls down, it'll learn from that very quickly. Yeah.
I think part of it is that babies don't just learn to walk, they also learn to eat, they learn to crawl, they learn to play with blocks. So it's that multimodal aspect that you're not learning one thing, you're learning to learn many things simultaneously. And if you can learn that master trick of learning, because like kids who do well in school versus kids who don't, there's a trick to studying for tests. You're like learning to learn on tests. So like getting into a good college or getting straight A's, these are just tricks you learn. They're like meta tricks. Similarly, I think we're kind of now like an F student. We haven't, in making general intelligences, we haven't learned the trick of how to learn many things. But once you learn that trick, maybe we're not that far. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with meta learning, I think we actually really don't understand how well that scales yet. I don't think that research has been done.
Yeah.
One easy experiment to do would just be doing the Atari stuff and have some holdout Atari tasks. I would assume that they would learn how to play the new Atari games really quickly.
And as a quick side note for viewers who haven't heard of the Atari benchmark, so a standard benchmark for reinforcement learning is learning how to play these Atari arcade games. And the idea is, how quickly can you learn to master a new arcade game, like some Pong or Alien Invaders that you haven't seen before? And right now, I think it's a lot slower than a human, but maybe that's
way slower.
Change.
Yeah, it's way slower. Honestly, even with meta learning, I would still think it's slower. Yeah. And even then, as a human, you probably don't have to play 1,000 Atari games.
No, you don't.
To understand how to play games.
And what if you like flip the colors on an Atari game? Like, as a human, we'd be fine. But...
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we as humans know that if red and blue are swapped, the world still behaves the same way? We have some model of reality that tells us that red and blue aren't that important, versus, chair and alligator, oh, that's important. You might want to watch out for that one. So maybe the fact is we have a theory of the world, and our algorithms don't yet learn a theory of the world. Are there any advances or things we can do with that, like get us there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't really have a good model of the world. We don't really have a good way of attending to information that is important, what isn't important. One thing I'm thinking about right now is it is a little hard to actually to parse out the richness of the environment and the algorithmic advancements. Which is more important? Which one do we need? I think it is a little tough to kind of really separate those two. In the absence of a rich environment, the best algorithms are not very interesting. In the absence of the best algorithms, the best environments aren't very interesting. So
it's hard, right? Because you need better algorithms, you need a better simulator, you need more data, and in some sense, I think all of this can just be solved by, I don't know. I was hoping I'd say something interesting there, but I don't know. I don't think there is a magical one-step solution.
It's not clear. I think, over the next year or two, I think we'll probably get to figure out how far meta learning will go. Kind of, I guess with the first Alex said, it wasn't really clear where that would go.
Right.
How that would scale.
Do you think meta learning is as important as Alex said? So again, side note, AlexNet is a type of convolutional deep net. This was kind of found about 2012 or so. And this really triggered a breakthrough in computer vision, letting us train deep learning models that would learn to detect objects and images. And it's had a tremendous impact on industry. So I think it's like restructured Google, Facebook, Apple, everything. You think meta learning is going to have that big an impact?
I think in some industries it will. If you're Google and you have translation data for like everyone who's ever used a Google phone before, it's probably not interesting. But if you are in other industries where you have not enough data, which is quite common, or if you are building some sort of intelligent being, you're always going to be data limited.
Right. It's like, if you look at us as humans, right, how many chances in life do we get to learn something? Like, you can only fail so many tests before you're kicked out of school.
Yeah.
So we have to learn quickly, and we have to learn on the fly. And
Mhm.
we'll need to, if we want to get AGI, we need to get that in our algorithms and our systems.
Yeah. So I think metalearning it gets us closer for sure.
It gets us closer.
It gets us closer to like at least like these general domain intelligence engines, maybe.
Yes.
Um,
So like
or-
a chemistry engine.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like a genetics engine.
Yes.
Kind of you're going one level up,
Yes.
but still, it's not a chemist that can go home and play with their kids
Oh no.
or drive
it's not-
home, things of that nature. It's still quite different.
Actually, that's a great point, right?
Mhm.
Because like when we talk about computerized systems replacing people, it's really important to realize there's always a loss, right? A
Mhm.
human being does many, many things, and no one algorithm is a replacement. So there's always, in some sense, every time something is replaced by an algorithm, there's always a loss there. The
Mhm.
only thing you gain is speed, really. So you can do it a million, billion, trillion times, which of course no human can. But you lose all the judgment and context. And this is why I think like we get into things like algorithmic sentencing. An individual judge might have compassion, might have empathy. An algorithm, it's just we don't have that context. We can't learn how to balance, say, justice and empathy in social situations. And this would be like a challenging multimodal meta learning problem. I don't know. Hard challenge right there.
Yeah, I agree. I think discrimination is probably a very large problem for these algorithms because in essence, you're finding this underlying structure in the data. You are looking for these very sophisticated priors in essence, right? You're making a lot of assumptions about the structure of the data, and for better or for worse, these base rates of whoever you're sentencing, whatever you're trying to exploit, or the deep learning system will find that.
And this could represent historical biases and
Mhm.
injustices in the past, which now we maybe have laws that are intended to correct against that. But if we're training only on historical data, that might include data from before you had
Mhm.
fair action regulations. It might include all sorts of other structures, hidden structures that we find that are not what ethically we would like to happen, but the algorithm does not have the context to realize that its decisions are taking place within a broader society. So in some sense, going closer to an AGI might enable us to recover some of this lost empathy, which I think will be automated out. So in some sense, I think AGI is not just about building Terminator, it's actually about building back in compassion, context, empathy,
Mhm.
and these other things that are getting lost in the algorithmization of today's world.
Yeah, I agree. How you go along doing that is a very tricky question. I suppose if it has context, it probably knows about itself, right? And it knows it's an
Yes.
AGI, so it's conscious.
And does it think about its rights with respect to us? And
Mhm.
what rights does an AGI have with respect to us? So I would assume if it can think and feel, it should have the same rights we do, but
Yeah,
our legal system is not there yet.
yeah.
By any means, I don't know.
Reinforcement learning agency and rights. They should be free to minimize loss.
Rights for reinforcement. Oh goodness.
On a different note, I think consciousness, that might actually be coming. Maybe, maybe it's maybe consciousness is just this very kind of noisy, short-term, attentive kind of memory bank that kind of evolves over time. So for every continuous time, your consciousness is this kind of noisy thing that's bubbling up from all of your memory. It's a function of its past. It's a function of the inputs.
Right.
And it kind of it evolves and kind of bubbles up over time. So maybe actually consciousness is just that simple.
There's actually, I remember reading some animal psychology at some point, and it was arguing that dogs and chimpanzees and even birds might have a limited form of consciousness.
Oh, probably.
So in that sense, right, like it's not unreasonable that your chemistry meta learner might be chemo-conscious in some weird way. I think this gets into a weird notion of qualia, I think. So there's I'm going to butcher the names because I'm doing this from memory, but there's a notion of like the our consciousness is controlled by the primitives or the levers we have to lever to interact with the world around us. So for most of us, we have, arms and eyes and noses and things like that. For a chemo agent, maybe it's levers of the world or creating synthetic entities, taking them in and getting. It's like it's almost bacteria-like.
Mm.
When you say a bacteria could be conscious because it has that memory bank and that feedback.
Some bacteria definitely have what you're describing, so maybe you're right.
Maybe we're just
I do think humans are definitely not the only beings that are conscious. I think also like a very core component of consciousness is also it's like prediction.
Yes.
We're constantly always predicting the future.
What you're about. Bacteria do that much?
Probably not. Yeah, and bacteria probably don't have a rich enough environment to do something like that as well, I think.
Yep. So we had a little.
But yeah, so I think consciousness is probably on the way. We'll definitely, I mean, we'll absolutely see it in our lifetime. Here's a question: do you think you'll see an artificial, basically an artificial human in our lifetime?
An artificial human in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Now that is a question. I think that's a good question. I'm gonna say no.
You're gonna say no?
Yeah, I think it's just too many problems. I think we will see. I will walk that back partially and state that I think we will see artificially generally intelligent agents that say are like little eye dogs or eye sheep or whatever.
Or like a robotic cat, maybe.
Yes, like a robotic cat. I don't think we're ready for iHuman. That's one step too far, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with you. Just the abstract reasoning and be able to solve novel problems and speak and communicate. Just like you have this system that can basically just do anything very well, and that's very, very hard. But yeah, I think like in 20 years we'll probably be able to buy like a robot cat that lives at home and charges every night or something like that, and goes around and walks around and kind of does cat stuff.
Here's a question for you: should you be able to buy an AGI? This sounds, if an AGI is sentient.
Probably not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should you be able to develop an AGI? Like, humans can develop new humans, so to speak, but in some sense, it's only the biological act of actually deciding to have children. You can't create a new human or obtain a new human in any other way, because by tradition, by wars, our societies know how to handle the birth of children. But the creation of new intelligent entities,
I assume it'll be regulated by them. Which, by the way, do you think our work should be regulated?
I think we do every day. Absolutely.
I think so too. I think probably within the next 5 years we'll probably have some bad AI scientists who does something bad with the technology.
Well, even worse than that, right? If you look at this whole situation with Russia and Facebook, it's clear that even simple machine learning systems that are set to optimize things like, I don't know, there's probably some innocuous metric at Facebook, monthly active eyeballs or ads delivered.
Yeah.
You can have all sorts of unintended consequences. And I think that if you have systems that are deployed at that global scale, you do need some control because these things are getting to be as dangerous as like flu medicine or cancer medicine, which are regulated heavily by the FDA.
Yeah, I think there probably needs to be some sort of regulation for Facebook's newsfeed.
Yes.
Because for better or for worse, that's actually probably where we get most of our news these days.
Yes.
And it's ranked by, I can only assume, a neural network.
It probably is.
And it's optimizing for engagement, some sort of proxy for eyeballs, something like that. And it's not at all optimizing for a better understanding of the world, or kind of helping you as a person, or kind of showing you things you need to know that you might have not already thought of. A lot of news is pretty boring. I don't know if anyone's picked up a newspaper in a long time. It's pretty boring. The Facebook newsfeed is very different than the New York Times was.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And if you have these AI systems mucking around with the information we take in and we use to kind of form an opinion about the world, I think we're already starting to see it's causing problems.
This is a great point, right? Because in the past, at least the past century or so,
Mm.
there's been some semi-centralized like notion of where society ought to go.
Mhm.
There's very good arguments about whether that was a just notion or an unjust notion, but for nation states, there were one person, perhaps a president, or a group of
Mhm.
people who would say, we think that for the nation to improve, we need this or that, we need to have better education. And maybe there'd be lots of discussion in editorials, newspapers, TV feeds. And we've replaced that world with the world in which our core nation state is governed by an algorithm seeking to greedily optimize clicks.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing is the spiraling outcomes of a world in which deeper intelligence was replaced by faster stupidity in some sense.
Yeah, the content that succeeds is, probably ranked by some sort of virality coefficient, and I mean that, at best loosely correlates with, is it interesting, is it useful,
Yes.
is it valuable? So, instead of getting, 10 ways you can save for your kid's college fund, you get 10 reasons why your cat is smarter than you. And, it's a different
I've seen some
world.
smart cat stuff. Or see,
Yeah.
again, you can tell it catches me, the virality coefficient. But there's a lot of, in some sense, I think we both agree regulation is needed. And I think we need to think about ways we can regulate that help the development of AI fruitfully without, while minimizing the potentially catastrophic consequences to all our
Yeah,
societies.
I think it's very hard. If you look at what happened with Wall Street in the 90s and the 2000s with the quantitative hedge funds, what we learned from that, basically, if you're smart enough to build these systems, you go to a hedge fund, you go to Jane Street, you get rich. You don't work at the SEC.
Mm.
If who's going to audit Facebook's newsfeed algorithm
Oh, that's a good
when
point.
they'd already be working at Facebook? So, yeah, I think this is almost a problem with governments in some ways. That I don't know if they'll ever be smart enough to regulate these technologies.
This is a great point, right? Because this is like the central regulatory problem in technological industries. Only those who do can regulate meaningfully, but if you're a doer, you want to permanently alienate one of your most likely employers for forevermore. And this is why, yeah, you just caught on a central point there. So maybe the trick is to go deeper, as in maybe we need to decentralize it. Like, so this is getting into the whole blockchain world, if you like, right? Maybe there needs to be a way to regulate by, oh, this is hard, by a mechanism in which there has to be some type of algorithmic fairness. Yeah,
Yeah, there has to be some sort of measure or something. Yeah, it's quite tricky. In some ways, we were able to regulate nuclear power because there was actually governments that were building that. The barrier to entry there is extraordinary.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about Bharath building nuclear weapons, but maybe you do actually have to worry about us building deep learning systems. So,
well, what's the barrier? $1,000 GPU and
yeah, some deep chem.
yeah.
So, yeah, can you regulate it? I'm not sure you can.
It's very hard, right? Well, I think one thing we can sidestep is like your average kid doing deep learning in their garage or whatever is probably harmless. Facebook or Google deep learning on billions of human beings is probably not. So we could just apply a simple scale test. If you're deploying a system that touches, I don't know, more than 10 million people, you need to pass through the regulator at some point. Or you need to have a public, maybe you could even just make it simpler, have a public log of the change made that affects that many people. And just logging in might force, it's like a sunshine act.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if you could peer into that. If but maybe by law the black box was open for people to play with.
Yes.
You could put random news articles in and kind of see the rank.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like it.
Yeah. But even then, if you can do that, you can probably also reverse engineer it, couldn't you? So
there's a leakage problem right there, right?
Yeah.
That's a good
The
question.
parameters will leak.
Well, they certainly will. So then, companies are not going to take that line down. They're going to lobby hard against any type of. But we have freedom of information acts for the government, and we have sunshine laws. We have ways to peer into the workings of the government. And given that Facebook and Google and other entities are taking on tremendous importance and power, I do think we will need to have some information visibility mechanisms. And
I agree.
maybe a compromise there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not unreasonable to ask kind of why things are ranked the way they are.
Yeah.
You have a credit scoring algorithm that that you think is being unfair. It's probably not unreasonable to ask why you're being ranked that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even better than that, right? Like, there needs to be some type of punishment for non-response to these types of queries. Now, this is very hard to do because I believe for credit scores, there do exist legal remedies, but most people can't avail of them because they need to file particular complaints in particular departments. It takes a lot of intelligence. Maybe someone needs to pick up for that.
Maybe in some ways you can actually regulate it kind of the way we regulate it now, because you are a human, and someone goes across your desk and you don't like the race of that person, you cannot take that into account.
Yes.
For that loan. And of course that's a very good thing.
Of course. And maybe we just need some more fairness.
Maybe you just need to ban certain features.
What about this? Like, you could set it up so that if you take all these people that have more than 10 million users, and you could have some type of open marketplace, but maybe I was trying to propose that you could have them test each other and vet each other, but you'd be leaking information here to our competitors at that point, which means no one would go for that.
Maybe you could like de-bias the information over races or something like that.
Use some type of actually private.
Yeah, have you seen the Atomwise paper for data de-biasing?
I think I've seen a little bit.
Yeah, maybe you could de-bias it over some sort of like racial metric or something like that, so that the algorithm is giving people different races, but it never actually learns to be racist. You kind of pull that out from the get-go.
I think definitely gender, race, probably ageism. Absolutely, you do this. You do run into fuzzy barriers at some point, like college degree. Is that a fair criteria?
Yeah, the information just leaks everywhere. If you take in a paragraph, if I had to submit an essay, you can probably guess who I am almost by just my writing.
Right. Or zip code. That's like a standard one.
Yeah, or zip code. Even my name.
But I think the one thing we can definitely agree on is that we need to start debating these things publicly, and we need to have proposals for ways to regulate these extremely powerful. I don't even know if I'd call them AI yet, but they're getting there. So let's say these extremely powerful AI systems that already control our daily lives, but without any consciousness, without any meta learning, without any multimodality. So to understand why some people are so freaked out about AGI, imagine everything we've been talking about, but instead of just a stupidity problem, what if there were an actively malevolent agent sitting at the heart of these systems that did not like us? That gets extremely scary extremely quickly. And if you have a meta learner, and you have a multimodal meta learner that does rapid reinforcement learning and has some notion of self through an integrated memory bank, is it perhaps unreasonable not to think that one day it might not like us? It's scary, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. We even with these simple systems, we don't really know how they're making these decisions.
You're on 948,082, had weight 39 instead of 36. I don't know.
Yeah, many of these systems, I think, a ResNet network has like 24 million neurons. What are they all doing? I mean, it's anyone's guess. We don't know.
No idea. All right. And with that unsettling note, we end for our session for the week. Had a great time kind of chatting about this. I hope you learned a little bit about AGI and a little bit about meta learning. And we hope we'll see you the next time we do one of these. And if you have any interesting feedback, let us know in the comments. And hopefully be nice to us. This is our first time doing one of these. And thank you all.
Cool. See you guys.
See ya.